Hey everybody, so here we are looking at Access Chapter 4 Grader Project. So I'm just going to go ahead and download my instructions, and I'm actually going to have to do this again. There we go. Alright, so here I'm going to show in the folder my file, and I'm going to drag it to my P drive. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that opened up from the P drive, and we'll take a look at these instructions. And as usual, I'm going to make it a little easier to read. Okay, so let's go. Now this one is a little bit different. It has us to start the database, and then it wants us to save it under a new name. So it's going to be exploring underscore A04 underscore grader underscore H1 underscore last first, where this is actually going to be your name. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and enable content, and then to save it as something different, yes, we want to make this trusted. We will go to File, and then we'll go to Save As. And on here, we choose Database if it's not already chosen. And then we click on Save As. Okay, and then let me go ahead and pull up my little keyboard. And now remember, according to the instructions, it wants it to start with the word exploring. So let me take off everything prior to exploring. Come back. There we go. Sometimes you just have to do things over, and that's all right. Okay, and then here we'll do another underscore, and it wants last first. Now, my name now is Holly Von Wald, but the system still knows me as Holly Payne. So let me use my old name so it will give me credit. And notice that I don't want it in the Windows C users yada yada document. I want it here in my P drive. So I'll hit save. Alright, good. And now it's a brand new database file. So I have 2 copies, but with different names. Okay, so we've got that. Now it wants us to select the speakers table as the record source for a form. And before I go into too much more detail, I kind of want to take a minute to explain what forms and reports are, because those are going to be the main focus objects for this assignment. And the forms are used to have a prettier and easier way for a user to input data into the database. When you're dealing with those tables that just look like basically Excel spreadsheets kind of, with a grid of columns and rows, that's okay if you only have a little bit of data. But if you're entering a lot of data, you probably want it to be a little more user-friendly. So forms are what create the user-friendly interface to enter data into your tables. And then the reports are what make it look nice to print out or share via PDF. So on all the previous projects in Access so far, we've been dealing directly with data, getting it into the database, organizing it, showing how it's related, and we've also been dealing with how to search it using the queries. But this time we're going to show how to enter and edit it in a more user-friendly way, and then make it look nice to print out. So that's the focus here. And sorry if that sounded like I was rambling, but I really feel like that's important that you understand. Okay, so we're going to select the speakers table. So there it is. We've selected the speakers table, and it wants us to use that as a record source for a form. So use the form tool to create a new form with a stacked layout. So we're going to go into create, and you'll see that here we've got all the different types of objects, so tables, queries, and here's forms. So we're going to use the more forms. No, actually, we're just going to go directly to form. It's automatically stacked. Sorry about that. I was thinking about something else. So when we just click on form, it creates this form automatically. All right, now we're going to change the title in the form header so that it says enter edit speakers. So if we look at it here right now, it just says speakers, but we can actually go up here, and I just double clicked, and so we can make changes. So it wants us to say, is it edit enter or enter edit? Enter edit, which makes sense if you think about it logically. You have to enter the speaker's info before you can edit that. So we'll do enter edit speakers. And there we go. That's our new title at the top. Reduce the width of the text box controls to approximately half their original size. Okay, these controls are what we call text box controls. These are called labels because they identify what's going to go here. But these are your text box controls. So what we want to do, if we're going to make these about half of their width, then we can do them each one by one, but that's going to take forever. So I'm just going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click on each one. Just slowly, carefully, so I don't get ahead of myself. And then on any one of these that are selected, if I hover my cursor to the right side, you see it turns to the double-ended arrow. And if I click that and drag it, I'm just going to sort of eyeball it. It says about half their width. So there we go. It wants us to delete the sessions subform control. Okay, so this is the sessions subform. So you see how it kind of looks like a form within a form. So it wants us to take that and then just delete that so it's gone. And then it wants us to view the form and the data in form view. And that's pretty much easy to do, like the other things that we've done when we've changed views on any of the other objects. So we just go up to view and then go to form view. And in this particular case, it doesn't really look a lot different because the form and the layout view can be very similar, but it wants us to look at it in form view. So that's what we're going to do to make the system happy. Okay, now we're going to sort the records by last name in ascending order. Okay, so we're going to look for last name, and then we're going to go up to the sort and filter, and there's ascending. So now it puts everyone in alphabetical order. And then we want to save the form as edit speakers. So we're just going to hit save, and it's already got the word speakers. So I'll just go over here and say edit. And then we'll hit OK. And then it wants us to close that form. So I just go over here and I exit out. Okay. So that part is done now. Okay, so now it wants us to open the room information form in layout view. Okay, so here's our form. So there's room information, and I'm going to open it and put it into layout view. Select all controls in the form. For me, the easiest way to do that is to just do Control A, and that selects everything in the form all at once. Okay, then it wants us to apply the stacked layout. Okay, so what we're going to do is go here under the form layout tools and look under arrange, and over here we have stacked. Now as I do this, I want to watch carefully what happens. You see how this one's kind of bumped out a little bit, so it's not quite perfect, but when we hit stacked, it automatically arranges everything in a nice neat little stack. And then it wants us to switch to form view. Okay, so we can do that under the Home tab. Go to form view. And then save and close the form. So easy enough. Save and close the form. Okay. Now here we have one of those multi-part steps that we have to do. So we're going to select the speaker and room schedule query as the record source. So we're going to click on speaker and room schedule. So see, these things are all divided by their categories. These are tables, these are queries, these are forms. So it wants us to focus on this query right here. Okay, and then activate the report wizard and use the following options as you proceed through the wizard steps. The report wizard kind of just automatically walks you through the process and creates it for you. So you really have to have minimal input on your part. It's a really neat tool. So we've got that, and we're going to go to create, and we're going to look for the reports section, and there's the report wizard. Okay, it wants us to first of all select all of the available fields, and the computer makes this easy by just using this double arrow. It bumps all of them over, and then we hit next. Okay, the next instruction says view the data by speakers. Okay, so notice it says how do you want to view your data, by sessions or by speakers. So we say by speakers and click next. Verify last name and first name as the grouping levels. So this next question is about grouping. So we want to do last name, first name. Okay, and then we click next. All right, and when we get to that, it says use date as the primary sort field. So we're going to go here, and it's asking us what we want to use for our sort. So we're going to use date, and it wants us to do the date in ascending order. So it's already set to that, so we'll just hit next. And then the next step says to accept the stepped and portrait options and save the report as speaker schedule. So you see it's asking us about the layout, so it says stepped, and for orientation choose portrait, and then we hit next, and this is where we get to name it, and we're supposed to call this speaker schedule. See there? Okay, so we just type in what we want to call it, and at this point we've created a report fairly quickly and easily. And see, it even looks like a piece of paper. That's kind of the whole goal. All right, let me move this up. All right, and it wants us to switch to layout view and apply the organic theme. So you remember from some of your previous projects and the other programs, you had the different themes that you could use. So that's true here as well. So we're going to go to close out the print view. It automatically bumps us into that. And we're going to go over here to layout view, and it says organic. So we go to design. See this section that popped up under report layout tools? So go to design, and then under themes, we look for them, and if we don't know, we just hover over each one so that we can see the changes as we go. And that one is organic. So we click it, and that applies to this particular report. And then it wants us to save and close the report. So again, we go up here to save, and then we just exit out. All right, now moving on to step number 8, and this is where we open the speaker and room schedule query in design view. Okay, so there's the speaker and room schedule query, and we're going to open it in design view. And then we're going to add the starting time field in the sessions table to the design grid after the date field. So in other words, we're just adding one more column. Okay, so there it is, and it's going to be from the, let's see, what did it say? The starting time. Okay, so we're going to go over here. Now, some of this stuff is covered up, so I'm just going to hover my cursor over this midpoint and drag it down. So I've got more room. And in the previous projects, like I said, I showed you that I don't like to have any of these with scroll bars. I like to be able to see everything. So there's the starting time, and that's going to go in our next empty row, or column that is. Okay. And then we're going to save and close the query. We do a lot of saving and closing here, but it does make sense when you see the end result. Actually, I did skip a step. Let's go back and correct that. This is what it looks like when you run the query. We just didn't run it, but that's what you do. Okay, now we're going to click the speaker and room query again, which we've done, and then we're going to go to create and use the report wizard again. It wants us to select all the available fields and view the data by speakers. So once again, we're going to use the double arrow to use all the fields. If we wanted to just do a few of these, we would use the single arrow. But since we're using them all, we do that. And then again, it wants us to view by speakers. Use the last name and first name fields as the grouping levels. So last name, first name, oops, yeah, that's right. Okay. And then use date as the primary sort in ascending order. So we'll hit next. Use date in ascending order. Now this one's a little different because it not only wants the date, it also wants the starting time as the secondary sort, also in ascending order. And then we click next. We want to accept the stepped and portrait options and name it Speaker Schedule Revised. So the only real revision that we did was add the starting time to it, but it is a revision, so they want it counted as a different report. Speaker Schedule Revised. Okay. All right. Now we're going to switch to layout view and apply the facet theme. So when we create that report, it automatically puts it into print preview. So we have to exit out of that and then change our view to layout. And notice that some of these have the pound signs and some of the things are cut off here. Just keep that in mind for later. But right now we're supposed to be changing this to the facet theme. So I'm going to go to design and go to themes, and I'm going to hover until I find facet, which is that one. Okay, so we have the facet theme applied, and we have to go to the next page. And we want to adjust the widths of the columns and other controls so that all the data is visible and fits across the page. I pointed out these pound signs, and with this particular theme, you can actually see more of them. And the point is that these are too narrow to let that field display. And if you look up at the top, it's supposed to be starting time, but all we see is, a portion of the title. So we're going to fix that in a minute. So it wants us to make sure that everything is visible and fits across the page. So we have to kind of just be patient here. There's no real fast and easy way to do this. But if you just take the slow and steady method, that's going to be your best bet. So what you do is you're going to just, you notice that all of the room numbers are just 3 digits. So we can make that narrower. So you click on the room ID header there. Let me move up my keyboard here a little bit out of the way. All right, so we have this highlighted in yellow. Hover your cursor over the right side, or in this case, we could go this way if we wanted to make it go quicker. And we're just going to bring that in because we don't need it that wide. Okay, and then when you click on these, kind of the same thing is true. You want to just bring it in so it's pretty much lined up right underneath the header. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit more. Okay, and then we can now move over the starting time, and it's sometimes a little finicky. You have to, again, just be patient and sometimes use your keyboard. You don't have to use this keyboard, the on screen. Just use your regular keyboard. If you use the arrow keys, it lets you move just a little at a time. So we're going to make it just wide enough to fit. And then in order to get the times to display, I'm going to put the cursor right here on the right side. See what I'm doing? Just hovering so that it becomes that double-ended arrow. And I double click. It's not going to do it in this view. That's okay. I'll just drag it over. Okay? And then once we've done that, we can simply drag these over. And again, it's a slow process. You just have to be patient. Okay. I'm going to bump that up. Notice that it's a little bit below the others. So we want it to look neat. So we're just going to bring it up. And then I think we can move over date a little bit. Maybe 3 clicks or so. Okay. Now, here we have a problem because this is the session title, and we want to make sure that we drag that all the way across until you can see the entire session title. And in order to see if you got all of them wide enough, you will need to scroll down and make sure. But you see, it looks like all of them are okay now. And then we've got our grouping going on here. And it looks like everything seems to be okay right there. Okay, so now we're going to switch to report view to ensure that the adjustments were appropriate. So we just go up to view and go to report view. And it seems like everything looks mostly okay. Okay. Return to layout view and make any required changes. That would be just making sure everything's wide enough. Add spaces to the column heading labels so that all values display as 2 words where appropriate. For example, change room ID to room ID, etc. Okay, so we'll see that if we go back to our layout view, we'll see that last name needs a space. So we'll just click in there and put a little space. First name already has one. Session title needs a little bit of help. Date is okay. Starting time needs a little help. And room ID needs a space right there. Okay, so that's all good. And then it says to save and close the report. So we'll save. And then we're going to close it. And at that point, we are finished. So we're going to close the database. We'll just say OK. X out of that. Come back over to our assignment submission. Now remember, this time we want to be careful to choose the one that we made all the changes to. And it should be the one where your name is at the end this time. So you click that one and click open and upload and submit. And at that point, we've finished.